Welcome to Ejstudios, man. How y'all bumming? I told y'all, man, I'm be coming back to back with the content, man. So today it's a little different. We're gonna do a reaction to this YouTube channel, A Day in LA by Dejon Paul. So we're gonna get a reaction and I'm gonna give y'all my opinion. Y'all let me know in the comments, was I tweaking or do y'all agree? This is the video, A Day in LA by Dejon Paul. Dejon Paul thinks Tupac ruined DeathRow Records. So we're gonna get a reaction on that. He think Tupac ruined DeathRow Records.
Tupac versus Snoop Dogg, who was a bigger artist in the 90s, who was a bigger star. Clearly, Snoop Dogg had the bigger album. Doggy Style was one of the biggest rap albums of the 90s. It had one of the biggest first week sales. I believe it sold over.
He said Snoop had the bigger album. My opinion on that, I feel like, of course, Snoop album, I guess exposure was bigger. I guess you could say bigger because y'all gotta understand DeathRow was just the form. They had Dr. Dre, Snoop, Lady of Rage. It was all building up. And then Snoop first outcome was on DeathRow. It ain't like he started with a group, then went solo, got signed to Interscope, then worked his way up. He just went straight to DeathRow, and DeathRow was hot. You see what I'm saying? So you kind of can't compare that to Tupac. Tupac started with Digital Underground, worked his way out to a solo artist on Interscope, and he just kept elevating. You see what I'm saying? Now, it would have been a different story if Tupac's first album dropped on DeathRow. It would be different results and a different story. Tupac's first album would have been way bigger and better than Snoop Dogg, but the case is different because Snoop, he started on DeathRow, and DeathRow was hot at the time. Dr. Dre was the biggest producer in LA. You see what I'm saying? Dre and Suge, they started DeathRow and just went up from there. So you kind of can't compare that, but I get what Dejon's saying. He's saying, stat-wise numbers, Snoop had a bigger album than Tupac's first album, but once again, Tupac ain't start on DeathRow. He started on Interscope as a solo artist, even though Snoop was a solo artist too. But what I'm saying is, he started in the game with Dr. Dre. He was writing already for Dre on the Chronic, and then his debut, he on the side of Dre, so he already was up. You see what I'm saying? Now, if Tupac had Dre on the side of him, it would have been a different story. Snoop, he dropped on a black-owned, up-and-coming, biggest record label.
I feel like Tupac, because of his him being a movie star, him being an actor, and then Snoop Dogg was in Murder Was the Case, and all the way to today, he's the most famous rapper on earth. But in the 90s, in 1995, 1996, Tupac was the bigger star, I believe. If Tupac walked in the room and Snoop Dogg walked in the room, more paparazzi would want to take pictures with Pac. More
Facts, I agree with that. And I ain't agreeing with he's saying paparazzi, the females that go to Tupac because he was a movie star. He was just a bigger artist, period, to me, in my opinion. The Dear Mama before DeathRow, Dear Mama, Brenda Had a Baby, he was different. He was unique. He was his own person. Snoop, he came out on that gangster vibe because, like I said, he started on DeathRow. You see what I'm saying? Because if you look at the timeline, when Tupac finally got on DeathRow, everything was different. It was more harsh than when he came out in Interscope with the Dear Mamas and Brenda Had a Baby. Because of what Tupac went through with the backstabbing, getting snaked, getting shot, getting robbed, getting accused of RAPE, just a lot of things were happening. So of course the music and everything was different, it was harsh. And people don't understand why Tupac was the way he was. They just, oh, he was a actor trying to pretend gangster. No, when you go through a lot of things and you at that age, it happened when he was 24. And then you go to jail for something you falsely accused of, a lot of things is not gonna be the same. You're not gonna get that same, keep your head up, I get around Tupac. You just not. That's not life.
Because Suge went and bailed Tupac out and signed him to the label, I feel like that's why Death Row Records ultimately ended.
I disagree. And the reason I disagree, I mean, my opinion, I feel like it's Suge's fault because at the end of the day, Suge was the CEO. If he played his cards a little better, now don't get me wrong, money-wise, he took care of his artists from Snoop, Tupac, etc. But I feel like if Suge played his cards right and he never messed around with Miss Chalet and had tension between him and Dre wouldn't never left. You see what I'm saying? When Pac died, Dre was already gone. Snoop was by himself. That last album didn't do too good. And he was like the last of the last on Death Row. So it's like, I feel like Suge messed up Death Row. You can't put that on Tupac. Tupac was the biggest artist on Death Row. I feel like he turned it up a notch. And by him losing his life, the whole thing fell apart. But I feel like it was all Suge. If Suge played his card, even protecting Tupac a little better, it was all Suge fault. I don't think Tupac ruined Death Row Records. I think it was Suge. Because if he would have protected Pac, ain't no telling. Death Row could have been still run. Snoop was still on there. And he couldn't carry the torch. And then he was having tension with Suge. Like I said, I think it was Suge's fault because if Suge played his cards better and refocus on Snoop and get Snoop to carry Death Row, it would have been okay. Suge got released. He should have kept his bond and relationship good with Snoop, so that way when he got out, him and Snoop can reconnect, you know what I'm saying? Make sure Snoop is comfortable so he can make great music, but by having tension with Snoop not being comfortable over there, he was ready to leave. That's why he pimped off and went to No Limit. They end up buying Snoop from Suge, paying him off so Snoop can go to No Limit. But I feel like it was all Suge. He didn't play his cards all the way right. I don't think Tupac ruined it. I think people feel like that because Tupac was the biggest thing on Death Row. And yes, a lot of artists got left behind because Tupac came and all the attention was on Tupac because he had Lady of Rage, Danny Boy, and all them. But if anything happened to an artist, he had a lot of artists he could have fell back on and recreated, but he didn't do that. So it was all, my opinion, it was all Suge's fault why I didn't maintain. Because it's like soon Tupac passed, the whole Death Row was just over with.
If Suge Knight never signed Tupac to Death Row Records, if Suge Knight focused on, if Suge Knight had focused on Snoop Dogg, on Dog Pound, Lady of Rage, Jewel, Danny Boy, if he had developed the roster that he had instead of focusing on going and sign.
You just said the answer, bro. It's Suge. If he focused on Jewel, Dog Pound, Nate Dogg, all the other artists, they would have been good. So if anything happened, which it did happen, Tupac lost his life, they could have kept the torch going. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you kind of said the answer, but you saying that Tupac ruined Death Row Records. I disagree with that. It was all Suge. Suge went to jail, but he was still making plays. He still had money. This was not the Suge that's locked up now. When he got locked up for violating his parole, he still was making plays and he still had a lot of money. So I felt like if he had a good bond with his artist, he still could have kept it going.
I wonder if Suge regrets signing him. I know I would.
Nah, I'm gonna tell you for sure, Suge don't regret signing Tupac. Tupac was his biggest artist. He made buku bread, money on Pac. So I doubt he regret that. To this day, if you watch interviews of Suge, he talk about Tupac. To this day, honoring him, never disrespecting Tupac. He started following Tupac. Tupac fake changed Suge a little bit. If you really look at it and research, he loved Pac. Pac loved him. They was brothers. But Nah, he don't regret that because they made history regardless of, unfortunately, we lost Pac and DeathRow. He lost DeathRow, but he don't regret signing Pac because they made history. He made money, and Pac is talked about to this day.